On the evening the city spilled heat back into the sky like a secret, Martin walked the long way home. He didn't plan it. His feet simply drifted, following the cooler corridors of streets that remembered trees. He passed the bakery that closed too early, the pawnbroker that never did. The light was low and generous. The kind painters tried to catch and forgive themselves for failing. He reached the corner by the old cinema and blinked. There, on the wall beside the poster of a film that would never play again, his shadow lifted its hand and waved. Martin stopped so sharply a cyclist swore in a foreign language and swerved around him. He looked down. His own arm hung obediently at his side. On the wall, the silhouette of his arm stayed lifted a fraction ahead of him, as if someone had spliced the film of his body and slipped a frame out of place. "Okay," he said aloud. "Okay, fine. Stress, heat. Too many meetings that end with the word circle back." He shook his head and walked on. At the next block, his shadow turned left toward Maple Street. Even as he continued straight, for a second, the two separated like quarreling brothers. Then, with a playful insistence, the shadow tugged, not on his body, but on his attention. Martin sighed, gave in, and turned after it. They passed the barber where the ancient radio sang news to no one. They passed the park with the broken fountain that pretended not to be broken when it rained. The shadow lengthened, then folded into itself, leading him with small, precise choices as if it had memorized a route his feet had forgotten. On Oak Terrace, a cat blinked from a windowsill, approving of his obedience to some older law. The shadow slipped ahead, cutting the corner like a child who knows home is around it. Martin knew then where they were going. He didn't want to know. The building on Willow and Fourth hadn't changed. Its bricks kept their agreement with time. The buzzer still wore its sticker labels like missing teeth. He hadn't pressed 3B in 2 years. The last time he'd left with a suitcase and an apology, folded so small it was almost a lie. His shadow stood at the door as if to say, "I've arrived. Catch up." Martin pressed the buzzer. Footsteps. Then the click of a lock. That wasn't angry. The door opened to a hallway that remembered their arguments and their jokes and the rainstorm where they danced, because they decided to be the kind of people who dance in hallways when it rains. Sasha stood there in a t-shirt with a paint smear like a comet across it. She looked startled for exactly 1 second, then did the thing her bravery knows how to do. She softened her shoulders. "Hi," she said. "My shadow cheated," Martin blurted. "It came ahead. I had to follow," she laughed. Not because it made sense, but because it was accurate. "You always took the long way," she said. He probably got tired of it. They stood with the door half open, the world waiting politely on the stoop. He could see the half-painted wall behind her, the brush staying wet longer than it should. "I came to say," he began, and stopped. He had rehearsed sentences that felt like stiff shirt collars. The words he needed were smaller. "I was wrong about what leaving would fix." She nodded. "Me too," she said. "About what staying would fix." They smiled at the mutual collapse of old certainties. It sounded like relief. They did not fling themselves into an embrace because time, when respected, does not like theater. Instead, Sasha stepped back and, with a hand more sure than forgiving, held the door wider. Do you want to help me paint the last wall the wrong color first and the right color after? He grinned. The only way to do it. Hours later, while the wall dried to the color they had accidentally loved, Martin stood at the window. On the opposite building, his shadow stood with him, perfectly aligned, finally at ease. It had found home earlier. Because it had not been burdened by pride or timelines, or the pieties of grown-up scripts. It had simply taken the street that turned toward the truth. On the way to bed, he paused in the hallway, where the air still held the memory of rain. He looked down and whispered, "Thanks for waiting." His shadow, polite and victorious, said nothing at all. Closing quote. Your shadow always knows where you belong.